So now we're going to displace some of the elements here in Revit, and this is a fairly straightforward process, I think, but sometimes I know it proves a bit frustrating. So again, just have patience with it and make sure you're selecting the elements that I'm kind of recommending you select. So this is a view that we want to create here. We want the foundation to be below. We want the site to be, have a footprint so we can see where the building goes. Our structure is above that. And then we can have our mechanical above that and our architectural elements displaced as well. So how do we first go about this? Well, what I would recommend doing is in the view that we've created, I'm actually going to rename this Displaced. Select everything. And then we can go ahead and go to our filter, check none, and then just select a few elements. Now first we want to displace the structure. So that's going to include things like structural beam systems, structural columns, girders, joists, and all the structural framing. We can leave the walls unchecked for right now. And that's pretty much all we need. So I'm going to hit OK. And now I can go under the Modify tab and hit this Displace Elements button. And what this will do is create a displacement set. And we can move this up. So I'm going to move this up here to where it's above my building. And I'm in an isometric view. It's always good to be in an isometric view when you're looking at how far you want to displace this, because isometric views are fairly understandable drawings. And when you displace this, we're going to have multiple elements. We want an even spacing. You can actually check the spacing over here on the Z displacement. But in the later tutorial, I'll show you how you can use that to your advantage. So what else do we need here? Let's go ahead and select everything again. Filter, check none, and I want to select the mechanical stuff. So that will be air terminals, duct fittings and ducts, and mechanical equipment. And now again, I can create this displacement set, and we can move this up. And now we have two of our systems. Now let's focus on the stuff that's going to go down. Now in this view, I actually can't see my my foundation, and when I turn on my hidden elements, it's because I've hidden the foundation in the view that I cloned. Honestly, this is probably going to prove a little bit frustrating to turn that element back on. Now, if you already see your foundation, you could sort of skip this step. But I'm going to go ahead and select my site. I'm going to unpin it, and I'm just going to delete it, and we can re-import that later if we need to. But here now you can see my foundation. So I'm going to select over everything, and I'm going to filter out. I don't need any of the analytical stuff, but I do need the floors and the structural columns and the walls. So I'm going to select that, right click, and I'm going to unhide and view elements. And now if we toggle the hidden elements mode, you can see that I have my foundation. So the next displacement will be our foundation. So I'm going to do a very similar thing here by clicking and dragging over. And I want to get as close as possible to be able to get all of these elements. Now you can also click and drag this way, but that might get some floors, so you might have to shift click some elements out. And here you can see I've gotten a wall, so I'll shift click that one out. And now I'm going to go to filter just to check that I have only the things that I want. So floors, this is probably going to be the spread footings, but also the grade beam spread footings. The structural columns will be probably some column here that came from the steel, and then the walls is probably the grade beam. So I'm going to hit OK because I'm fine with that, and we're going to make a displacement set. I'll go back to an isometric view, and we're going to pull this down, and there you can see my foundation. So the last thing is architecture here. So we want to select everything, and this includes your floors from your structure. We're going to edit those in a little bit. But what I want to do is, if you've selected the lot, we want to shift click that, and we want to shift click the property line as well. But just to show you how you can get rid of elements, I'm going to select everything and make this displacement set and go up. But now you can see that there's this sort of middle ground where we don't have the site, we want the site there, and I accidentally put it in this group. Well, you can edit these groups by clicking the group and going up to the edit button. And you can add or remove elements. So if you want to add things, if they're in another displacement set, you can't necessarily get them. So you would have to remove them from that group first and then add them to this group. But here I can click the remove button and then I can click the site and you can see it snaps back down into place. So I'm going to select the property line here and then hit finish. And then we're pretty much good to go. Those are all of our elements displaced and in place. So one thing that I forgot to mention is that we included all of our walls and our floors here. Now for the floors, it's okay to be in the architectural. That's actually what we want. We want it to be up at the topmost level. We don't want to see it in our structural. But for the walls, we do have some shear walls. So how do we go ahead and add those to the structure? Well, I sort of indicated how you would do that for something like a like a mechanical system, but here I can tab over and get one of the shear walls here. This is the shear concrete wall, and I can right click, select all instances, an entire project, and now we know that these are the ones that are gonna have to go down. But I can't just, I could make another displacement set and make it go down, but it's probably better to actually edit this and remove those elements. That's a bit hard to see, so you sort of have to maybe change it to like a wireframe. No, that doesn't really do anything. Actually, if you change it to shaded, it helps a little bit. And I know that I have a shear wall here, so let's see if I can get it. There we go. We can just select that. And now you can see that my shear walls have gone down. And now we can select this structural group and add the shear walls. And there we go. Now we have our shear walls in our structure. So the last thing I'll show in this tutorial is how you would do a horizontal displacement set. Now you can always displace these elements in any direction, but how would you displace something that's already been displaced? Well, if you hover over this, you can only select the displacement set unless you hit tab. And if I hit tab, you can see that now I can start to select some of these elements. And we want to displace our shading systems if you have them. And I'm going to select, you can see this says walls, curtain wall shading. I'm going to select the curtain wall system rather than the curtain wall elements. And now I can make another displacement set, and I can pull this horizontally. I can do this here as well, but this one is integrated into the elements, into the curtain wall. So let's say I just want these louvers. Well, I know that I can tab over and select one of these, and I can actually right click and I can select mullions on the vertical grid, on the horizontal grid, or I can select all instances in the entire project because I know that these are a special type of wind louver. So now I can again create a displacement set based on that and pull that out. Now when you pull the louvers out, you'll have a gap here, but that's totally fine. We actually kind of like to see that has a location line to go to. So we can play with this and move it a little bit further out, move this a little bit in, and there we go. That's all of our displaced elements. So in the next tutorial, I'll show you how to change some of the materials, change some of the colors, and then add some things like displacement lines.